Hello, everybody! Welcome back to the... I was about to say The Legend of Zelda again. God damn it. Welcome back to Mario Tennis Aces. So anyway, in this part, now that we've done the tutorial, we're actually gonna play some real goddamn tennis. Finally.
But Toad said we had to find the 5 Power Stones. There were only 2 games.
So,
only 2!
When I brought up Yu-Gi-Oh! Last part, I thought it was just a random tangent, but then I realized at the start of this part, wait, these magical games are Egyptian too. Wow, okay. That was actually more relevant than I thought it was.
So anyway,
Nobody ever goes for Hindi.
So Donkey Kong's very worried about us. He thinks this forest might be too dangerous. So in order to prove that we're strong enough to go through the forest, we have to beat him in tennis. It really is basically just Yu-Gi-Oh! Now that you think about it, where it's just like, okay, kid, I'm gonna take your lunch money after I beat you in this card game.
Man,
I
that's
play
the most
Rebo in attack
unrealistic
mode.
thing ever, though, because, an actual bully would take your cards and then take your lunch money.
Yeah, it's like Bandit Keith should totally be able to beat up all the kids in their group, but he challenges them to a card game instead and just flees whenever he loses.
Actually, Bandit Keith is actually believably underhanded, at least in the manga.
I'm more talking about the fact that he's just, a tall American dude who could just beat the kids up.
Well, no, he pulls some crap in the anime, too. Like, this is edited in the 4Kids version, but he just straight up has a gun, and he's just like, he loses in the first season, and then he's just like, okay, Pegasus, give me your shit, and he points a gun at him.
Yeah, in the comic, the manga, it's actually way more chilling. Like, he's sort of breaking down because he lost his game, and they went into his backstory about how he got all suicidal because his career was ruined by Pegasus, utterly humiliating him. But
what was he before?
He was a pro player, and Pegasus set him up against a little kid who utterly wrecked him with Pegasus's instructions because, well, Pegasus can read minds. But the upshot was he lost his major source of income. He was making a whole ton of money off prizes. So he sort of descended into, depression and went to an underground gambling circuit for money. And he was playing, actual Russian roulette. So in the end, Pegasus casts an illusion on him. Or at least it's dubious as to whether it was real or an illusion, where his hand actually turns into a revolver and he's forced to put his finger to his head. And, yeah, it happens off-panel, but it's implied he shoots himself in the head. As to how real it was, or whether he survives it, that's something the comic never answers.
Man, that's dark. It's just like, I play gun in attack mode.
Yeah, I mean, in the anime, it's like right? Pegasus had this trapdoor that dumps him into the ocean, but, that's just so that they can have Bandit Keith to come back in a later season and fulfill a role that a completely different character did in the comic. So...
Yeah. And it's not like they do anything extra with him after that. He's just
he's just kind of there.
He might have burned to death in the warehouse fire or whatever it was.
I think he gets rescued in the anime. But the that whole sequence was part of the Dungeon Dice Monsters storyline in the comic, which was completely different than how it played out in the anime. I actually recommend reading the Dungeon Dice Monsters part of the comics because it's a really good arc in the comics. It's kind of bleh in the anime. Like, they really shaved a lot off of it, but it was like the one time. It was like
one episode, right?
It was long. It was just they took out the story and made it about how whatever his face is, Ryuji or Duke Devlin in the in the dub, they made it about how he idolized Pegasus and thought Yugi cheated. It was nothing like that. It had to do with Yugi's grandfather and this magic game that his grandfather got into with Yugi's grandfather that made him perpetually ugly because he lost. And Duke / Ryuji / whatever his name was wanted revenge on Yugi on behalf of his grandfather. And the fire in the warehouse wasn't a fire in the warehouse, it was a fire in the game shop that Ryuji's grandfather owns, or Duke's grandfather, or whatever his name is. I forget his name, and I'm too lazy to look it up. I'm sorry.
Justin Timberlake.
But basically, that whole storyline was the storyline where Yugi had to play on his own because the puzzle was stolen. And the puzzle was chained to a table and got smashed by the grandfather, not by Merrick. It wasn't part of the Merrick storyline.
Yu-Gi-Oh's weird, man.
Yes,
it's also like the only of the card games that I know how to play.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to play even, like, the Pokemon card game, but I know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Because my brother had a Game Boy Advance Yu-Gi-Oh! Game.
It's
that
like...
I played a little bit,
but
so
like,
I know the rules.
But, like, though, in the anime, of course the anime is all about the card game, so they made the board game about the same monsters as the card game. But in the manga, the Dungeon Dice Monsters arc was the arc where, in between the two massive card game arcs, the manga remembered that it was originally about all these different kind of games. So it opens up on like a regular playing card game and moves on to this completely different board game and explains all the rules and has this big long story arc about it. And it was fun. It kind of reminded me that Yu-Gi-Oh! Had an actual original idea behind it before it became a generic shonen card game battle thing.
I think that's Season 0.
Yeah.
As other people know it.
Yeah.
Is the Pharaoh still a massive dickwad at that point in the story, or?
Oh, he's still comparatively nicer. It's not like they abandoned his character arc or anything, but you also don't see as much of him because, like I said, that the Dungeon Dice Monster game was played by Little Yugi rather than Dark Yugi.
Yeah, because I know that one of the things I do know is that the Pharaoh was originally like a giant homicidal asshole. So
In the original manga, yes.
he's just like literally.
He is just straight up the villain in that series for a while.
He was more of an anti-hero than a villain, I would say. Like
he
definitely
supersonic.
I was say he skews more towards villain than. As far as the anti-hero skill, he definitely skews more towards villain than the hero side of it.
Oh yeah, he's pretty ruthless, but he's ruthless toward like people who are even more ruthless than him. So it kind of all balances out.
He's the anime version of the Punisher. Okay.
Basically.
Basically, yeah. I mean, Kaiba tries to steal the rare Blue Eyes White Dragon card, and Dark Yugi casts an illusion on him that makes him think he's being eaten by actual monsters. And this is called experiencing death. Like, that's exactly what Yugi says. And this is so traumatizing that it drives Kaiba insane and makes him, actually create a virtual reality imitation of that illusion, which he inflicts on Yugi's grandfather. So it's not like it's all sunshine and rainbows. Yeah,
what did Yugi's grandfather ever do to deserve that much bullshit?
Well, it makes a lot more sense than what happens in the anime, where Yugi's grandfather just has a heart attack for no reason after losing his rare card. I don't really understand why that happened in the anime. It's very poorly explained. But yeah.
I mean, again, maybe back to tennis a little bit. Like, as dumb as Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of is, I do appreciate how sincerely they kind of stick with it, I guess. Like, kind of like here, just like, okay, Mario can jump on these guys, but hitting a tennis ball back at them is the only way because he decided to be a tennis person today.
Yeah.
He's not wearing his jumping hat.
No.
Or his jumping overalls.
Oh yeah, no. He's wearing his tennis cleats, which are way less effective against piranha plants than plumber shoes.
Exactly.
If you jumped on someone with tennis cleats, that would result in some actual blood and gore, and we don't want that in a Japanese game, do we?
No, that would be. Oh, god damn it, Spike! I hate you. For some reason, Spike, out of all of the enemies that they brought back for Mario 3, I just don't like him at all. Especially when they tried to make him like a playable character in Mario Party and in this game, and I'm like, no, nobody cares about you.
I mean, that's kind of the problem of these Mario spin-offs where, you have the usuals of like the plumbers, the princesses, Bowser, and so forth, and they're always kind of just struggling to put new characters in to do something different with them, and it's like, you really don't have anyone else to use but these kind of, not necessarily obscure, but absurdly minor, unimportant enemies.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird in that, for some reason, some people tend to be better with certain enemies than others. Like, nobody seems to mind when Boo is playable, for example. Like, nobody...
Or Shy Guy.
Or Shy Guy, But, like, the moment, like... Or, something like Goomba, where you have to make the racket float. Like, that's funny, for example. But as soon as you add, like, Spike, then you kind of feel like they're reaching. And you are right about the multiple characters thing, because that's part of the reason why the baby characters from Yoshi's Island end up appearing in so many of these, is because, okay, we need more lightweights, let's do Baby Mario. And, Of course, like, there's the whole, it doesn't make sense that Mario and Baby Mario should be able to exist in the same timeline. But we're not here for Mario Doctor Who.
But, you know, they really should put a little bit more focus in these games on actually creating new characters that are memorable and
yeah, I wish they would do I wish they would do is bring back the characters from like the Game Boy and N64 games, like Alex and Plum and all that.
Yeah, like, because, you know, the characters in the GBC and GBA Mario sports games, you know, I feel like have enough personality. And, you know, I guess this is the first time we brought back this story mode. While I like it, it's trying to be parts of what made those games fun, but it's not doing the right kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Like you have experience points, but it doesn't really do much of anything.
Well, no, they help. They definitely... Well, they don't help as much as the new rackets that you get for beating certain games.
So it's like you get some general stat buffs, but there's like no way to do anything with the stat buffs. They just make you better.
Yeah, like...
compared to like the Game Boy Color tennis game where you could choose what stats to put your points into so you could play more how you wanted with the character.
It's kind of weird because the Mario Golf game on 3DS, Mario Golf World Tour, I actually like that game a lot. The Mario sports games after the GameCube, and to a lesser extent the Wii, because Mario Strikers on Wii is pretty good, but I hate Mario Baseball on Wii. So, you know, after like 2008 or so, the Mario sports games kind of just had a really weird drop in quality where they were barely coming out and they weren't as interesting. But, you know, because, like, Mario Sports Mix is basically just 4 barely developed Mario Party minigames. And, you know, there's the other 3DS one with, like, the horse riding, which is really weird to have, like, Yoshi riding a horse. So now I'm imagining Mario riding
myself.
Mario riding a Yoshi riding a horse, which is weird. But the 3DS golf game, Mario Golf World Tour, is actually like an exception to all that. That one's pretty good. And it does let you customize your character in that kind of way. Like, you don't really level up, you buy clothes instead. But you can choose, okay, do I want my character to have more control with a shorter range or whatnot, you know?
You know, I almost forgot how much I love the alternate rackets in this game. They're kind of like aesthetically, they're like Keyblades, kind of.
They are. You know what? They kind of are. Like, there's one that's just, you know, I haven't played really much Kingdom Hearts at all. I think I played like 4 hours total. I got like halfway through the Alice in Wonderland level before giving up. It's just not my game. But, you know what, they do look like the different kind of Keyblades you could get. I just wish that there was more of this customization in the main game. Like, even if, you know, again, if you're trying to make this game more competitively focused, which is clearly what they were trying to do, you know, each character having, like, maybe a different racket that you could alter their stats slightly would have been neat, maybe. Add some of the RPG elements from the single player into the multiplayer. Perhaps. I don't know. Also,
well, you know, if they wanted it to be competitive, they could just do the Smash Brothers thing and have a mode where none of that actually applies, you know?
Well, the thing is they kind of do. Like, that's the standard tennis court. But, I mean, I think we saw this, it was earlier this part, because this is part 2. We saw one of the gimmicks for the courts, and that was the Pirhana plant sticking out of the pipes, and if you time your shot wrong, they spit the ball back at you. And that's like, you know, that's a relatively decent early game Mario kind of hazard. Like, you'll see something kind of that minor in most of the games. But there isn't anything really wackier than that, which is the big problem. Like, you know, the only other one that I think that gets kind of close is the snow level, where you got all of the people walking out of the train station, and they might, like, interrupt the ball or something like that. Other than that, most of the hazards that you run into are relatively minor and a little too easy to deal with, whereas one of the things, like, I mean, granted, you know, having a competitive option is great, and I'm not saying that that shouldn't exist or that there shouldn't be, you know, less major hazards so that competitive players can have a little bit of spice and not have to just play on the same clay court every time. I'm just saying that stupid, wacky hazards are part of the reason why I like Mario Sports. Like, one of the best examples I can think of is Mario Baseball on the GameCube. That's probably my favorite Mario sports game because they do have, a really simple baseball field for those who want a standard game, but all of the other courts in that game, I feel, really add stuff, like the Donkey Kong one, for example, where barrels will just randomly roll across the field, and if you get hit by it, then you don't catch the ball, and the other person gets like a triple or something. Or the Princess Peach one, where you can occasionally hit a floating block in midair, and then the ball will bounce into the grandstands, and you'll get a home run or something like that. There's nothing.
or just going to the outfield, get thunked, and then just an infielder catches it. It's like, damn it.
Yeah, basically.
The best way to handle it, I think, is the current Smash Brothers way, where every stage has its hazards and everything, but every stage also has like your final destination and your battlefields and your big battlefields.
And to be fair, I do believe this game does do that, but the only thing is that now the only difference is like the ball speed, which is hardly noticeable. So I wish that the differences were more pronounced. Is more just what I'm saying.
I suppose, yeah.